जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरदारी यशोदनन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यमुनतीरा वनचारी यमुनतीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा शील प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा शील प्रभुपादा जय विश्वपाद परमहंस चतुर्थ सदस्य श्रीमती स्वामी श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापक शील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस चतुर्थ सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद श्रील किशोरदास भक्त महाराज की जय। जय विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्रील भक्तिविनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय विष्णुपाद वैष्णव साकों श्री जगन्नाथ दास भक्त महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य दास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गौ श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवंद की जय। समाविद भक्तवृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंद हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtigi. Hare Krishna. So we are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16, Text 12 and Text 13. I'll first read Text 12. Tanme swabartur avasayam alakshamanau yusmat vyatikramagatim pratipadya sadhyah bhuyo mamantikam idam tat anugraho me yat kalpatam acharato vrtayor vivasah. Tanme swabartur avasayam alakshamanau yusmat vyatikramagatim pratipadya sadhyah bhuyo mamantikamitam tat anugraho me yat kalpatam achirato bhatayor vivasah. Tanme swabartur avasayam alakshamanau yusmat vyatikramagatim pratipadya sadhyah bhuyo mamantikam itam tat anugraho me yat kalpatam acharato vrtayor vivasah. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These servants of mine have transgressed against you, not knowing the mind of their master. I shall therefore deem it a favor done to me if you order that although reaping the fruit of their transgression, they may return to my presence soon, and the time of their exile from my abode may expire before long. From this statement, we can understand how anxious the Lord is to get his servitor back into Vaikuntha. This incident therefore proves that those who have once entered a Vaikuntha planet can never fall down. The case of Jaya and Vijaya is not a fall down. It is just an accident. The Lord is always anxious to get such devotees back again to the Vaikuntha planets as soon as possible. It is to be assumed that there is no possibility of a misunderstanding between the Lord and the devotees, but when there are discrepancies or disruptions between one devotee and another, one has to suffer the consequences, although the suffering is temporary. The Lord is so kind to his devotees that he took all the responsibility for the doorman's offense and requested the sages to give them facilities to return to Vaikuntha as soon as possible. Text 13. Brahmovacha atatasyo shatim devim rishikulyam saraswatim naswadya manyud dashtanham tesham atma pyatripyata. Brahmovacha atatasyo shatim devim rishikulyam saraswatim naswadya manyu dashtanham tesham atma pyatripyata. Brahmovacha atatasyo shatim devim shikulyam saraswatim naswadyamanyu dashtanham tesham atma pyatripyata. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Brahma continued, even though the sages had been bitten by the serpent of anger, their souls were not satiated with hearing the Lord's lovely and illuminating speech, which was like a series of Vedic hymns. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurudbhalitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vidapatagamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Dev Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalala Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustude Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanuste Devi Paramami Haripriye Namo Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kapasnudubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupada Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Moham Karoti Pachal Bhagam Lage Kapata Muhammad Shri Guru Devata Paramanda Shri Chaitanya Ishvara. Hare Krishna. So I would like to welcome you all to this Tuesday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Here in this verse number 12, the Lord is telling the Kumaras that these servants of mine, that is the two doormen, have transgressed against you, not knowing the mind of my master, that is Krishna himself. I shall therefore deem it a favor done to me if you order that although reaping the fruit of their transgression, they may return to my presence soon. That means the Lord is accepting that the doormen, that is Jaya and Vijaya, undergo the punishment that they have been given, and that, but at the same time, the Lord is requesting them that the two of them return back to Vaikuntha planet as soon as possible. So that means the Lord is accepting that the punishment be meted out to both Jaya and Vijaya, but at the same time, he is requesting them that the Kumaras, that these two doormen come back as soon as possible. Now everything is in the hands of the Lord. Now it is not that the Lord cannot do anything, but in this the different moods of the Lord are expressed. One is the Lord is called as Bhakta Vatsala. That means the devotees are very dear to the Lord, and the Lord is also very dear to the devotees. So he is trying to keep the principles intact, so that that if the Lord breaks the principle, then tomorrow every Tom, Dick, and Harry will break the principle. So that is why the Lord wants that the punishment be given to both Jaya and Vijaya, but at the same time, he is asking the Kumaras to so that they may come back as soon as possible. That also the Lord can do. So the Lord is actually exhibiting the power, the quality of humility in front of the Kumaras, so that it is a lesson for us also to learn, because humility is the most important factor in devotional service, which we generally tend to ignore. But it is said that even in the materialistic situation, normally there may be leaders and there might be devotees engaged in services, and there might be many times misunderstandings happening even amongst the devotees. But the way the devotees relate with one another, it reflects a lot in terms of the Vaishnava etiquette. For example, it is mentioned here, as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport itself, that then generally there won't be any misunderstanding between the Lord and the devotees. But there may be discrepancies or disruptions between one devotee and another. One has to suffer the consequences, although it is temporary. So that means devotees also have to go through some suffering for some time temporarily, but devotees don't mind going through that, because it is for the pleasure of the Lord. Tomorrow, if the Lord wants us to be a part of his pastime, we can't say, no, I won't do, because we are all part and parcel of the Lord. At any point, it is said that devotional service is that we should always be thinking, how can I please the Supreme Lord? That should be our motive. And devotional service is such that, pure devotional service is such that it is said that even if one desires to go to the spiritual world, and with that intention, if one performs devotional service, that is also not pure devotional service. One must reach this stage of pure devotional service, that at all costs, at any cost, at all point of time, one's only motive should be, how can I please the Supreme Lord? This should be our only intention, and that should be the pure devotional service. Of course, it may not be possible to reach that stage of pure devotional service from the very beginning, but when we start practicing devotional service and associate with devotees, one day, yes, it may not be in this birth, maybe in the next birth, maybe after 5 births, we will definitely reach a stage of this pure devotional service where we understand our constitutional position as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and our only motto or motive for devotional service is to keep the Lord happy. That's all. Whether we undergo the suffering or not, that is immaterial. But even if we have to undergo, it is said that it is a very temporary phase that one may have to go through. which a pure devotee does not have any problem in going through that type of a situation. Because ultimately the Lord makes the arrangement for all these things. You see, the Pandavas went through some suffering. They were all pure devotees of the Lord. But they didn't say, no, we will not be part of all this. But the Lord took care of them right from the beginning all the way up to the end. So that way, why will the Lord not take care? Just as a parent is always interested in taking care of its children, we are all children of God. So Lord will definitely take care of us in our own interest, not in His interest. Of course, it is His interest also that we go back to Godhead, but it is our interest also. But like I mentioned in every class, that we have to put our endeavor, and the Lord is prepared to help us out in every possible way. Now, another important thing is that here the Lord is taking the blame of the doorman on His own self. He does not blame the doorman. He does not tell the Kumaras, no, actually it is the doormen who have made this mistake. So I will find out, or something like that. Generally, what happens is that even in the material world, we might come across many situations which we might not be responsible for, we may not be accountable for, but we might be held responsible. People might come, let's say that this has happened, that has happened. But and what happens is that we say, oh, it was not my mistake, it was somebody else's. But nevertheless, at the most, we might say, I'll find out and come back to you. But here, generally, it is said that the right way of dealing is, even on a material platform, is when some blame comes on us, the leader should take the blame on his own self, even if it is not, he is not responsible. That is the right way of dealing. So, whereas if something good happens and somebody appreciates us, then we try to take the credit for it. Whereas it is said that when something goes wrong, we take the blame on for that. But at the same time, when something comes good, we don't take the credit for that, but rather we give the credit to our team members. That should be the quality of an ideal leader, even on a materialistic platform. So the same should be followed even in devotional service, and which is what we see here. The Lord is accepting the blame on His own self for the active acts of the Jaya and Vijaya. So, but if we do this, and when devotees see, yeah, this is how this particular devotee is acting, people will start appreciating. But then what happens is that appreciation of our attitude sometimes can lead us to development of pride, which is also not right. So that is why it is said that dealings, particularly the interpersonal dealings between devotees, dealings between the Lord and the devotees, should be handled very, very carefully. I'm not a specialist on this subject, but then whatever I have heard, that's what I'm mentioning about. So we should handle in a way that there is no misunderstanding. And even if some misunderstanding happens, we take the blame on our own self. We don't put it on others. Now, like I said, it may be difficult to practice from the day one, but we should reach some stage where we are able to practice this in our devotional life. Materialistic life, I mean, of course, this is the right way, but then situation depends on person to person, situation to situation, type of people that we associate with. And there might be some places where if we express our humility beyond a certain stage, people might take us for granted and may do anything. So, but it is our maturity that will show us the path as to how to handle a situation. But generally, this is the mode that is suggested. Now, how do we handle? Because what happens is that particularly amongst the devotees, what can happen is that we might sometimes come across a situation which might upset our behavior, which might upset our attitude, but then we have to keep ourselves cool. And at any cost, we don't disrespect anybody. But on the other hand, we respect the other devotees, even if it is not our fault. That is the best way it is said that we should handle the devotees. The moment we respect a devotee and appreciate the other devotee, then automatically what happens is that other devotee also understand. For example, if I have made a mistake, but still if somebody appreciates that I have not, he doesn't find fault with my mistake, but at the same time what happens is he appreciates saying this so and so, that you have done a very good thing. Then internally my consciousness will always say, oh, I did a mistake, but still this Prabhu is appreciating me, so now I have to correct myself. So I may not repeat that. So that is why this is one way of correcting the other person. But we have to be, like I said, be careful in terms of the language that we use, the body language that we use, the verbal language that we use. We have to be very careful and understand the position of a devotee. The reason is that if a devotee feels offended, then it is a very great offense and it can block our devotional service, which I will come to. So even Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that we should respect others, but not expect any respect from others. We should respect others, but we should not expect any respect from others. So that is why in the Shikshashtakam, he says that one who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give all respect to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. Now, it does not mean that you will not be able to chant the holy name of the Lord otherwise, but then one will not be able to relish the taste for the holy name as long as we continue to commit offenses against the devotees of the Lord. So I just go through the 4 important things in this particular sloka itself. One who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree. So we should always think that I am lower, I don't know anything. But the moment we think that I know something, that makes us little proud, and we expect that, oh, that I should be respected. But the moment we think that I don't know anything, then automatically the mood for humility comes. Now, one example that is given is that when do we express our humility? For example, if we fall sick and suddenly we reach a stage where we have to go to the hospital for treatment, then we have no other option. And at that time, when we are sick, lying in the bed seriously waiting for the treatment to be happening, we express our humility to the doctor, somehow or other, please help me, please rescue me, this. That is when we express our humility, because we feel there is no other option but that. So when it can happen in a hospital, why not in our day-to-day routine life? So humility is an act or behavior which we all should practice in our day-to-day life, especially in the line of devotion service. And then here specifically it says, one who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give all respect to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. So we don't expect any respect. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also taught. But at the same time, we respect each and every devotee. Actually, if you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has gone one step forward by teaching that we should not only respect all the devotees. Even Krishna has said that all the Mamaivamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, all the living beings that we see, whether it be an animal or a bird or an insect, they are all part and parcel of Krishna. Now, if we know that they are all part and parcel of Krishna, where is the question of disrespecting or underestimating the other living entity? For example, one might develop a hatred for, say, a cockroach. Now, ideally looking at a cockroach looks dirty, and the way it goes about, it's all very dirty. It comes to dirty places. Now, we can keep the cockroach away by keeping ourselves and the environmental clean, instead of developing a hatred for that cockroach. Why? Because that cockroach is also a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And maybe we have also gone through so many forms of life, and one could be a cockroach also. So if we put ourselves in that situation, we cannot develop a hatred for any living entity, which are all part and parcel of the Lord. So this is actually a deeper understanding of the philosophy of devotional service. So, we don't teach these things in the basics of Bhagavad Gita, but then these are all subtle things that we must try to understand. So there is no question of developing a hatred or something with any living entity who are all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So that is why it is recommended that in order to develop this humility, we all do so many services. Some may be cooking, some may be cleaning, some may be serving, some may be speaking, some may be preaching, some may be chanting. All these are different aspects of devotional service. Now, normally it is said that, for example, before we start the class, we offer prayers to all the acharyas in our parampara. So it is said that we must similarly pray to all the acharyas in our parampara before we start commencing our service, any service it may be. Because what happens is that we may not be able to see them physically on a one-to-one basis, but the thing is, anytime when we perform our devotional service, we are connected to each one of them, and by offering prayers, they will also try to help us reach this stage of humility, which is very, very important and which is very, very necessary for us to progress in devotional service, because there is no other way out other than reaching this stage of pure devotional service. The earlier, the better for us. Maybe when we started practicing devotional service, we might not have heard these things, but this is how it is. So we offer our prayers. By offering our prayers, we are actually humbling ourselves and praying and saying that I'm not at all intelligent, I'm a fool. This should be the actual mood of us. And that is actually the meaning of the offering prayer. We are humbling ourselves. What is the purpose of our respecting the other person? Because we should feel that I'm nothing compared to the other person. So when we offer prayers to the Supreme Lord and the acharyas in our parampara, we are humbling ourselves by identifying ourselves to be an insignificant person. So that is why it is said that when the sign of humility is detachment, and the absence of humility is attachment. That means when we have attachment to some other materialist object or a material person, then that is the time we don't have that humility. But the moment we are detached from any materialistic thing or anything, we automatically exhibit this detachment. So these are the stages that we should try to go through and reach the ultimate, that is pure devotional service, by practice of which we will be able to exhibit this humility. Now, some of the examples that are given are like, for example, Arjuna approached Krishna with humility, and Krishna explained Bhagavad Gita to him. Parikshit Maharaj approached Sukadeva Goswami with humility. And we can develop these qualities definitely. For example, Queen Kunti in the first canto itself has offered so many prayers to the Supreme Lord. And if we try to understand the meaning of the prayers that she has offered, we will also one day develop that humility. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, even during his days, he said that one thing which is very important and very useful in our day-to-day dealings with the devotees. He said, devotees can show their love for me by cooperating with each other. Now, what does this mean? That we have got into this movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Of course, the blessings of all the acharyas, Lord, everything is there, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So we should be feeling grateful to Srila Prabhupada for having shown us this path and having got into this moment. So how can we repay our debt to a person like Srila Prabhupada, personality like Srila Prabhupada? And he said that can be possible by showing their love for me by cooperating with each other. That means, sorry, there was some disturbance in the neighborhood. So we can express our love for Srila Prabhupada by trying to show our cooperation with the other, even if the other devotee may not cooperate. But if we cooperate, the other devotee may be humbled himself to cooperate with us. So it is we who have to take the initiative. We should not develop ego. No, if he is like that, why I will also be like this? We go through these situations on a day in and day out. Then we go to text number 13. Before that, I would like to mention one point. The Lord is so kind to his devotees that he took all the responsibility and he wanted the devotees come back as early as possible. The Lord also does not want us to be in this material world for a long time. No, he wants us to go back to his home. The text 13, then Brahma is explaining that even though the sages had been bitten by the serpent of anger, their souls were not satiated with hearing of the Lord's lovely and illuminating speech, which was like a series of Vedic hymns. Now we see here, the Lord is speaking some very nice, pleasant and pleasing words to the Kumaras. So when the Lord is speaking, it looks like Vedic hymns. The last class I mentioned how there may be some Brahmanas who may recite some Vedas in a very nice, fluent manner. So the Lord also speaks such beautiful and very pleasant words that anyone will get attracted by hearing that. But here it is mentioned that the Brahma says that the 4 Kumaras, they were not satisfied hearing the Lord's pleasing words. So supposing you are upset and somebody comes and speaks very nice, pleasant words to you, but still it does not console you. So what is the reason for that? That is what is mentioned in this particular sloka, which is also very, very important, because it says, because the sages had been bitten by the serpent of anger, they could not be satisfied by hearing the Lord's speech, which was very, very pleasant. Now, again, here the point is that anger is something that which is a big impediment in the practice of devotional service. The Lord himself tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, 21st and 22nd sloka, that there are 3 gates leading to this hell. That is lust, anger and greed. And every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. That means these 3 things, that is lust, anger and greed, they are the 3 gates to hell. And any sane person should give these things up, for they lead to a degradation of the soul. Now, next he says, the man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. So this anger is something, even yesterday, while I was preparing for the class, something went wrong and somebody disturbed and I was feeling a bit upset. But in the process, for some time, I was feeling a lot disturbed by that. So it is also, this anger is also not something that we can overcome very easily. Now here, because even though the Kumaras were there in the spiritual planets, but and they went to see the Lord, that this is also a devotional service, but their anger did not go away very easily. So what happens, that is what is mentioned here. Of course, it is not mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but then in the commentary given by the Acharyas, it is mentioned how an anger, even at this, in this exhibition of anger in the spiritual world, can also affect or block one's devotional service. And anger is such that it may not help you progress further in devotional service. And the outcome of this, it is said that was that the Kumaras, actually, if they were in the proper mode, they would have got into Dasya Rasa with the Lord. But because this anger was there in their minds and they were not properly receptive to the Lord's message, when the Lord was speaking to them, if you see all these previous verses, the Lord has been speaking some very nice, beautiful words. But it did not enter into their mind, into the heart, because they were bitten by that anger. So what happened was that the result was that they ended up into Shanta Rasa, which is neutrality. Of course, it is not. It is better than not being in any rasa, but at the same time, it is said that the Kumaras would have been on a higher platform of Dasya Rasa instead of Shanta Rasa. So, which is a sort of a blockage of devotional service. So now, if it can happen to the Kumaras, why not us? So all these examples are given to us for us to understand that whatever the situation may be, whatever may be a difficult situation that we might be in, we should try to restrain and control our anger. Srila Prabhupada himself exhibited many situations where one time when he was giving a class, those days, most of these Westerners and Europeans, they didn't have a culture. Even now, they may not be having a culture. So in the initial stage, a person came and at that time, he gave a piece of toilet roll to Srila Prabhupada. But Srila Prabhupada even did not even react for it. Rather, he accepted with pleasure and he converted it to an opportunity, and that person became a devotee of the Lord. So this is how Srila Prabhupada set examples whereby he did not exhibit his anger, even in the most trying circumstances. So the point is that what we should learn from these great personalities is that how can we change ourselves? There is no doubt that we also had a lot of anarthas. At the same time, we all would have been convinced definitely that by performing devotional service, we have gone through a lot of change in our own life. A lot of anarthas have got reduced. A lot of anarthas have vanished from us. But we may have a long way to go. We don't know. But the Lord knows. He's there within our heart as the Paramatma. So we should continue to put our endeavor thinking that I still have a lot of anarthas in me. We should not think that, oh, I've become free of anarthas. That itself is a little bit of a pride. So the Kumaras were angry because they thought that even though they were there, they thought that that small little bit of pride was there in them, and that made them to curse the two doormen, that is Jaya and Vijaya. If they had not cursed the two doormen, it is said that they would have been on a higher platform of devotional service. Now, why this example is given to us is that at every stage of devotional service, it is not that we start practicing devotional service and everything goes off immediately. No. Srila Prabhupada always said that in this birth itself, one can make himself perfect and perfect. But it may happen, it need not happen in this birth, it can happen in the next birth, and it may happen not in the next birth, in the birth after that. But we should continue to put everything in the service of the Lord and see that our anarthas go away. There are examples of even devotees, pure devotees exhibiting anger. For example, Hanuman. Hanuman used his anger in the service of the Lord. It does not mean that Hanuman is a lesser servant of the Lord. No. But at the same time, we should try to restrain our anger in such a way that we are able to control our own self. If we are not able to control ourselves in this particular human form of life, it may be much more difficult if we come to this material and take the birth as a demigod. Because when you have an opulence in your life, then that's when it becomes very difficult to become detached at the same time having opulence. So that is why one should be very, very careful in terms of his dealings with the devotees, in terms of interpersonal reactions, not exhibiting anger, speaking good words, speaking pleasant words, being pleasant in one's dealings. All these are the lessons that we must practice in our life. Today also happens to be the appearance day of Mother Sita. So I thought I'll speak a little bit before taking the questions and answers. And there may not be time to speak on Mother Sita, but then today is also the disappearance day of appearance day of, one second. Once again, the file went off. Yeah, it's also the appearance day of Janma Mata. So I'll speak a little about her because she's a very great, important personality in our devotional life, and we should know what are her contributions, even though she had a feminine body. It is said that Srila Prabhupada quoted, and this Janma Mata was none other than the consort of Nityananda Prabhu. Yeah. Now, whenever the Lord appears to perform his pastimes, he comes along with his consort, and Janma Mata appeared as the wife of Lord Nityananda. And Lord Nityananda was none other than Lord Balaram himself. Now, it is said that she was such a great Acharya in our parampara that she was called as Acharya Rani, as a queen of all the Acharyas. And it is because of her, the book distribution movement started in our book distribution service started in our movement. It is said that she convinced Srila Jiva Goswami. We all know who Jiva Goswami is. He's one of the 6 Goswamis. She convinced Srila Jiva Goswami that before this incident happened, it is that most of the Goswamis stayed in Vrindavan himself. But she told Jiva Goswami that if you keep yourself in Vrindavan, who will benefit? But rather the books should be distributed in Bengal and Orissa. And that inspiration, Srila Jiva Goswami followed, and he called Srila Narottam Das Thakura and Shyamananda to take the books to Bengal. So this is how the book distribution process started. And it is said that somehow she inspired and pushed all of them to such an extent that all the books that they took were all distributed. And not only that, she had an orphanage and she adopted many orphans. So everything that she did was also in the service of the Lord, to please the Lord. And she, not only that, she told Srila Loknath Goswami and Srila Narottam Das Thakura how they should travel, and they took the books at that time in bullock cart. So this way she gave a lot of inspiration to them and made them travel with the books. And she also pushed them to distribute as many books as possible. And that is how this book distribution as a big service started in our movement. And today, you know how important book distribution is. So they said that when Narottam Das Thakura returned to Ketri, he got a letter from his Diksha Guru, which said that we must install deities of Radha Krishna. And there are 5 sets of deities at that time of Radha Krishna, which are there, which she helped in installation. And there was, during her time, it is said that there were many, many groups. The Vaishnavas were split into many, many groups. And each and everyone was, having misunderstanding with the other group, this way, that way. And she was such positively oriented that she reunited all these groups, and they all accepted as her guru. Some accepted as her Diksha Guru, and some accepted as their Shiksha Guru. So she was responsible for bringing into unity so many splinter groups that were there amongst the Vaishnavas. And this was one thing she did apart from book distribution. And she was the senior most during her time. And she had studied all the scriptures very, very well, and made her disciples also understand Chaitanya Charitamritam, and convinced them to read and understand also Chaitanya Charitamritam. Actually, Chaitanya Charitamritam to understand is not very easy, because it is said first we must try to understand Bhagavad Gita. If we understand Bhagavad Gita, then we may understand something about Srimad Bhagavatam. And then if we are able to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, we may understand Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because Chaitanya Charitamrita is so much full of philosophy, it may not be possible for us to accept it immediately. But she taught her disciples so very well and made everyone that they all accept Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is non-different from Krishna. So this is how she convinced many, and then she was responsible for installation of the 5 sets of Radha Krishna, which I believe they are still there today. One of them is in Keturi and some of them in Bangladesh, I believe. And she, not only that, she was personally responsible for making garlands for the deities and offering them to the Lord, and then dressing the deities up, and then giving the Mahaprasad garland and all then distribution to the devotees. She personally involved herself in all these services. Now imagine, generally these days, at least in our country, we see, we may consider that women as a taboo and they cannot do. But she was a perfect example of not only as a woman devotee, but as a great acharya. She was very well versed in the scriptures, and she made many disciples Krishna conscious and gave them initiation also. So this is how she was responsible not only for one aspect, that is book distribution. She inspired many devotees to take up many services like these, and this way many came up, and that is how the devotional service progressed, and she was the consort of Lord Nityananda. So these personalities are all great examples for us to learn, from whom we should learn and practice in our devotional life. And considering that time is limited, I may not be able to cover anything else. So what I would do is, for the next 5 minutes or so, I can take some questions, comments if you have any. Does anyone have any questions, any comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandapana.
Hare Krishna Prabhu,
Prabhu, like regarding Janva Mataji, like where she lived, Prabhu, like did she live in Vrindavan Bridge or she was in West Bengal?
Apparently, she also used to travel a lot, because when she inspired others, Goswamis like Jiva Goswami and Narottam Das Thakur and all to travel, but she was mostly in this belt only, Bengal and Orissa and these belts. She also has been traveling, and there is not much of an information that is available about her complete this thing, but maybe if I can get it, I can try and give it to you. At the moment, this is all I have. And mostly all these things started from the eastern part of India, which is Bengal and Orissa and all these places.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Any other questions? Any other comments? Anybody has got? If not, can I take the class as closed? Can I leave, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
If we don't have questions, we can wind up.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.